tout le monde. Je suis contente de vous parler encore une fois. Pardonnez-moi, je vous prie, ma manière de m'habiller. Please pardon the way that I am dressed. Je fais le ménage. I'm doing housework. J'ai donc un tablier. Un tablier is an apron. Mais j'ai eu l'idée de comment vous adresser cette semaine avec un sujet culturel lié à la France et aux États-Unis. Le titre de ce vidéo est Le dramaturge et l'agent secret. I will translate a bit. I said I came up with an idea for a video that would give you a cultural subject that is both related to the United States and, of course, France. And the title of the video is Le dramaturge et l'agent secret. A dramaturge is someone who puts on some kind of show. Usually they are a playwright, they could be a producer. Um, it is absolutely about the stage, however. Someone who is involved intimately in a leadership way with film without precising that they're the director or the producer exactly, that person is called un cinéaste. Un cinéaste. Le dramaturge, however, is usually a playwright, but could also be someone who puts on amazing plays or innovates somehow in the field of theater from a leadership perspective, usually not an actor or an actress. So, le dramaturge et l'agent secret. I think you understand agent secret, secret agent. Le barbier de Séville et la Révolution française. The Barber of Seville and the French Revolution. Yeah, that's a thing. I didn't make that up. It's totally a thing, as you will see. Normalement, normally, les auteurs vivent sans être impliqués aux intrigues politiques de leur jour. Normally, authors live without being implicated in political intrigues of their day. Intrigues includes plots, scandals, things like this. Here I have a picture of some random author. Notice it's not a self-portrait. I'm not that vain. Ils écrivent. They write. Même s'ils s'intéressent à la politique, ils ne déclenchent pas des émeutes. So here are some new words maybe. Même, even, s'ils s'intéressent à la politique, if they are interested. Notice that's a reflexive verb. S'ils s'intéressent, if they interest themselves. And notice the S apostrophe because si il is a little strange. And you would say s'ils intéressent à la politique. If they're interested in politics, ils ne déclenchent pas des émeutes. Déclencher is a verb in irregular. It's a regular ER verb, which means to let loose, to start, to ignite sometimes in terms of human activity. Des émeutes. Une émeute is a riot. So I'll say that again. Même s'ils s'intéressent à la politique, ils ne déclenchent pas des émeutes. The guy in the picture here looks like he's writing you maybe a really good plot, but he doesn't look like he's going to set City Hall on fire over here. This is the only meh in the whole video. You will probably be terribly relieved to find out. Pierre-Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais ne confond pas à ce modèle de l'auteur qui ne s'implique pas dans la politique de ses jours. Let me do a little translating. Pierre-Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais is the name of the guy in the portrait that you see. Pierre-Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais, you see, de Beaumarchais means he is at least a minor aristocrat. When you have what's called un nom à particule, which means basically if your name has de in it for the French, it tends to mean you are an aristocrat. He was not a very high-ranked aristocrat, but he was a very influential person at court. Pierre-Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais ne confond pas, does not conform à ce modèle, to this model de l'auteur, of the author, qui ne s'implique pas dans la politique de ses jours, who doesn't get involved or get implicated in the politics of his days, the time he lives in. No. Pierre-Augustin Caron de Beaumarchais, usually just referred to as Beaumarchais, is a significant player in the discussions of his day. He lives in the Enlightenment. And is not as serious a political philosopher as a guy like Voltaire or Rousseau, but he is nevertheless an important thinker of his time. En plus, il devient agent secret pour le roi Louis XV. Here's what he did. He became a secret agent, not for the last king, but for Louis XV. And what he did was there was kind of a tell-all book that was going to get published in England about the French crown, and he went to England pretending just to be a guy who was a writer and talked to a publisher that happened to be publishing that book and basically found a way to pay them the king's kill fee for the book so that they somehow never came out with it. Il publie et distribue les textes de Voltaire qui sont interdits en France. He is publishing and distributing banned books. He's also, that role means he's kind of editing them. Like, he's not editing, changing words exactly. He's adding an introduction, he's getting them printed, he's publishing them, but it's all got to be on the DL because Voltaire is kicked out of the country. He's not okay in the country, even though everybody reads him, because he's funny. Pendant la Révolution américaine, il agit en tant qu'intermédiaire entre le gouvernement de France et George Washington. During the American Revolution, which I will remind you happens before the French Revolution, Beaumarchais, il agit, he acts en tant qu'intermédiaire, as an intermediary entre le gouvernement de France et George Washington, between the French government and George Washington. I will also remind you of a political fact. They were our ally in the fight against the British who colonized us. And the reasons were several. Reason one, the French king didn't like the English king. And reason two, the French colonies in Canada, Quebec, and in the Caribbean saw themselves competing for territory and influence with the British colonies. And three, he was sort of operating, the King Louis XVI was operating on the idea somehow that if he could get British colonists to provoke a fight with their own king, he would have an upper hand on that king in the territories. It wasn't only his idea, but his advisors as well. And it is perhaps, in retrospect, a little bit surprising that he did not see the seeds in this of his own revolution that would decapitate him a few years later. But there it was. Thank God the French helped us during the revolution. And Beaumarchais was an intermediary. Il est emprisonné par Robespierre et ses suivants pendant la Terreur. During the reign of Robespierre after the revolution, he gets thrown in jail, but that's a little weird. There were a lot of people, just to be clear. Robespierre and his horrible purges were they were kind of like guillotine happy there, and a lot of the people, like Jean-Paul Marat, who is one of the first revolutionaries, gets guillotined for somehow falling short of the revolution, according to Robespierre. Eventually, Robespierre gets guillotined. It's really a bloodbath after a certain point in France. Mais Beaumarchais survit la Terreur. Il est emprisonné, mais il n'est pas guillotiné. Il n'est pas guillotiné. He is not killed under the terror. He is simply imprisoned for a time. He walks out of jail after Robespierre's death. Plus important que tout, il écrit une pièce de théâtre qui inspire la Révolution française et même un peu la Révolution américaine. More important than anything else, in the context, of course, of this discussion, il écrit, he writes, une pièce de théâtre. The word pièce in French can mean many different things. I can have une pièce de monnaie, which is a coin. Une pièce, je suis assise dans une pièce qui agit comme mon bibliothèque chez moi. This room acts as my library. Une pièce is a room in a house, but une pièce de théâtre is a play. Une pièce de théâtre. Donc, plus important que tout, il écrit une pièce de théâtre qui inspire la Révolution française. His play inspires the French Revolution and even un peu, a little, la Révolution américaine. So not the guy who sits in his ivory tower and writes about flowers. Not that guy. Mais qu'est-ce qu'il a pu écrire pour inspirer deux révolutions importantes? But what could he have possibly written to inspire two important revolutions? I both ask and say, good question. C'est l'auteur du Barbier de Séville. He's the author of The Barber of Seville. Comment? Comment is, huh? What? Le Barbier de Séville, ce qui a inspiré l'opéra, le dessin animé avec Bugs Bunny, the thing that inspired the opera, the cartoon with Bugs Bunny. Yes, Le Barbier de Séville. En quoi est-elle révolutionnaire, cette pièce? In what way is this revolutionary, this play? It's a good question. Again, I'm asking good questions and I'm patting myself on the back saying, my God, your questions are genius, Anne. But I assume you would ask similar questions. Donc, Le Barbier de Séville. This is a drawing. Sometimes he plays a guitar on stage because Spain and guitars in Spain. La pièce montre un homme du peuple qui est capable, futé et qui joue plusieurs rôles dans la société. The play shows a man of the people, really meaning an ordinary guy, qui est capable, who is capable, futé means clever, et qui joue plusieurs rôles dans la société. He plays multiple roles in society. I will explain. Le barbier rase les barbes. Barbers shave beards, of course. Il agit comme chirurgien. Remember, this is before you have organized hospitals in most places. And if you are anything other than the richest person, you probably don't have a ton of private doctors coming to your house. And barbers have scissors and knives and razor blades. And if you absolutely need like a musket ball taken out of your leg, you might very well end up in the barber's chair, not in the doctor's office. Il offre des conseils pendant qu'il coiffe ses clients. He offers advice while he does the hair of his clients. Coiffer is to style hair, to do hair. Remember, this is the age of reason. And the idea of who you might take advice from is more important. And Beaumarchais gives us a very clever guy. So you really would want his advice. He's not just some dude mouthing off. He's a guy who actually seems to have a clue. C'est un commerçant. He's a successful businessman. Remember, the bourgeoisie started all these revolutions. C'est un homme qui connaît tout le monde et qui peut aider ses clients à résoudre leurs conflits. He really knows everybody in his community and is able to help his clients resolve their conflicts. This is part of what the Barber of Seville is actually a trilogy. And he does this in multiple ways throughout the trilogy. He's not exactly a peacemaker. He's a behind-the-scenes negotiator, not entirely unlike some of the courtly roles that Beaumarchais played on behalf of Louis XV and other people. Another thing about Le Barbier de Séville, la pièce montre aussi un noble qui est stupide et qui se fait mener par le nez malgré sa noblesse par un simple commerçant. Let me explain this. La pièce montre aussi un noble. The play also shows us a noble person, a nobleman, who is stupid, qui est stupide, et qui se fait mener par le nez. Se faire mener par le nez means he's like led around, much the way Bugs Bunny in pretty much every cartoon he's in with Elmer Fudd is able to maneuver and manipulate Elmer Fudd to get away from him, and we laugh because the rabbit is much more clever than the human being. Malgré sa noblesse, despite his nobility, the nobleman is not able to take control of the circumstances in which he finds himself with the barber. Et donc il se fait mener par le nez malgré sa noblesse par un simple commerçant, by a small-time businessman. Just as we laugh with Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny, the people who watched The Barber of Seville laughed at the ingenuity of Figaro, the barber, and the stupidity of the Count. Donc, la pièce, dans sa version finale, fait son début le 26 février 1775. Elle connaît un succès triomphal. The play, in its final version, there were a couple of false starts. They did a couple of rewrites that were pretty significant in a hurry, we're told by history. But the debut of the version that anybody can know and that's published is the 26th of February, 1775. pay attention to when our revolution is in relation to that date. That's significantly concurrent with our revolution. Elle, la pièce, connaît un succès triomphal. Triomphal means triumphant. This play is, I say this with some irony, the Hamilton of Paris theater at the time. It's the play that everybody has to see. And it's not just the bourgeoisie that goes, working class people get into at least, the nosebleed seats. The aristocrats make it stylish to go. They laugh at the silly count and the clever barber. And people enjoy it a great deal. I could have put another mais here, but I didn't. À force de rire, le public se permet de se poser des questions révolutionnaires. À force de rire means because they're laughing, le public, the audience, se permet de se poser des questions révolutionnaires means the public allows itself to ask revolutionary questions. If you laugh, you relax. That's literally physically true. People who are laughing are relaxed. And people who are laughing tend not to feel terribly threatened. So they are able to consider things in a way that people who are tense or worried are not. So because they're laughing, the public allows itself to ask revolutionary questions. Pourquoi est-ce qu'un homme capable de la classe ouvrière a un rang social inférieur à un aristocrate? Why is a capable man of the working class, why does he have a social rank that is inferior to that of an aristocrat? Why? That's a revolutionary question in 1775. Pourquoi est-ce que la société considère la naissance plus importante que la génie? In his own way, the barber is a genius. Figaro is capable of doing all kinds of things. He's not a genius who cures cancer, but he's a genius who is what the French call débrouillard, which means he can muddle around like Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny gets out of every scrape he finds himself in. Bugs Bunny est débrouillard. Figaro est débrouillard. So why is it that society considers la naissance, birth, plus important que la génie? La génie is genius. Why would it be that someone born into a good family of high rank would automatically get that rank when someone who has a genius about him would be obviously never able to rise to that level? That's a revolutionary question in 1775. Pourquoi est-ce que le peuple français doit se courber devant les aristocrates idiots et cruels? Why is it that the French people have to bow before idiot, cruel aristocrats? Voici la question révolutionnaire de la Révolution française. That is the revolutionary question of the French Revolution. Parmi le public qui a vu la pièce Le Barbier de Séville et qui l'a adorée, il y a un jeune noble qui s'appelait le Marquis de Lafayette. Among the audience that saw the play, The Barber of Seville, and that loved it, notice that accord du participe here. La pièce de Le Barbier de Séville et qui l'a adoré. Qui a adoré la pièce? La, L apostrophe signifie la pièce. Donc, je dis adoré avec un E supplémentaire. Il y a eu, there was, a young noble, un jeune noble qui s'appelait le marquis de Lafayette. A young noble that was named le marquis de Lafayette. We know him around here. Après avoir vu la pièce de Beaumarchais, il est parti pour l'Amérique du Nord se commettre à notre révolution. After having seen Beaumarchais' play, he left for North America to commit himself to our revolution. Was it simply the play that inspired him? No. He was doing a lot of working on his research and also thinking on his own. And then he saw the play. And not long thereafter, he ended up here with George Washington, painted quite apocryphally here next to George Washington. He's a young guy on the right. Nevertheless, surely there were moments like this during the Revolution. They might not have occurred on Christmas Eve on Valley Forge, I don't know. Nevertheless, we know for sure he was there, and we know for sure he helped us, and we know for sure he saw the play and he loved it. So you do the math. Comme Voltaire, Beaumarchais a compris que l'esprit révolutionnaire est un esprit rieur. Like Voltaire, Beaumarchais understood that the revolutionary spirit of really any time est un esprit rieur. Rieur means a laughing spirit, one that is apt to laugh, not necessarily laughing at everything, but is willing to laugh and is apt to laugh. So, I have given you some homework. Votre devoir, en réponse de ce vidéo, venez en cours mardi, prêt à discuter vos réponses. In case you want to do a homework related to this, I have one for you. Come to class on Tuesday ready to discuss your response. Composez quelques phrases qui répondent à cette question. Write several sentences that respond to this question. Quelles œuvres modernes voyez-vous qui combinent un sentiment révolutionnaire avec de l'humour? Sont-ils plus efficaces à force de faire rire les lecteurs, les auditeurs ou le public? Let me explain the question, which is really two questions. What modern works do you see that combine revolutionary sentiment with humor? Are they more effective because they make their readers, their listeners, or audiences laugh, is what I am asking. Donc, écrivez-moi quelques phrases à propos de cette question, en réponse de cette question. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I personally have seen The Barber of Seville, and I love opera. I think I might just love the Bugs Bunny Elmer Fudd version a little bit more because I laugh harder. And at least according to Beaumarchais and Voltaire's thinking, that makes it more revolutionary because we are more willing to rethink things. So, go rethink something, and I will see you Tuesday.